Hi everyone, it's Sarah and Ginger Cat from Sarah Homfray Embroidery, and in this video we are going to take a look at colour, specifically in relation to embroidery. So I'm going to try and demystify some of the terminology around colour and give you some tips and some tricks and some practical advice on how you can choose colours for your embroidery projects. Now, a few weeks ago, I put a call out on our channel members community page and asked our members if there's anything they'd like to know specifically about this subject. And we got some good questions on that. So I'm going to actually go through those at the end. Do stick around and look out for those because they might ask the same questions you're thinking. There's lots of good ones in there that I'm going to go through and answer. If you're interested in becoming a member and you aren't already, you can check out this link up here. It's a little video about it. It tells you all about what it is and how you can join. Okay, so we're going to start with some basics. Now, this is quite a complicated subject. It's taken me a long time to organise this video. I've got a big set of notes here as well that I am going to refer to because I'm going to get lost, and I want to try and make this as simple and as clear as possible. So this is just the basics. It's a massive subject. You could talk about this forever, and people have written whole books on it. So this is just the basics, and hopefully you can find something useful in here. I will put a PDF up as well of some of the things I'm going to talk about in this on the free stuff page on our website. I'll put a link to that in the description below so you can refer to that. You haven't got to remember all this that I'm going to talk to you about. So we're going to start with some of the terminology. So we're going to start with a colour wheel. So what's a colour wheel? So this is a visual representation of colour and how the colours work together with each other. And I've got a couple of them here. So I've got an artist's one here. You might have seen one of these before, and then I've got one that I've made myself using embroidery threads, and I'm going to use both throughout this video to help me explain the different terminology. So let's look at some of the terminology. So we're going to start with the most basic one, and that is hue. So hue is the description that we give a colour. So the grass is green, so the hue is green. Red is a hue. My top's purple, so the hue of this is purple. So it's literally the descriptive name that we give a colour. So let's talk about primary colours. You may have heard this term as well. I'm going to refer to my embroidered thread, my embroidery thread colour wheel here. So primary colours, there are three. They are red, yellow and blue. These are primary colours because in painting, these are the three colours that can't be mixed from any other colour. Can't make them from any other colour, so these are primary colours. So we've got red here, we've got yellow and we've got blue. Now if we mix two primary colours together, we get a secondary colour. So if we mix yellow and red, we get orange. So orange is a secondary colour. If we mix red and blue, we get violet. These colours are quite right my embroidery thread, but this is a violet rather than a purple, so mix between these two. And then if we mix a blue and a yellow, we get a green. So the secondary colours are green, orange and violet. So if we mix again, we mix one primary colour and one secondary colour. Remembering a secondary colour is two primary colours, so now we've got three colours. We get what's called a tertiary colour. So we've got our red and our yellow are our primary colours. We mix those together, we get orange, which is our secondary colour. We mix the secondary colour with a primary colour and we get a tertiary colour. Now you can see that the more you mix, the less saturated these colours become. They change colour, and if you keep on mixing them, you'll get your neutral colours. So you'll get your browns, especially with these, and you'll get greys and all of those sorts of colours in between. Those are important. We'll talk about those later as well. But you only really need to know your primary, your secondary colours, and maybe your tertiary colours as well. Okay, some other colours you might hear are tone, tint and shade. Now, a tone is technically how much grey a colour has got in it, so sort of how dark and light it is. And if you have a look here, you can see a little tonal scale. So we've got black down to white and two greys in between. This is as light as you can get, and this is as dark as you can get. So those are worth knowing. If we add a white to our colour, we get what's called a tint, and those will be our pastel shades. I can show you that on this little colour wheel painted here. So this is from a set of paints I have that uses white when you're mixing your paints, and you can see here I've added white in to the colours. So these are the pure colours on the outside, and I've added more and more white as I go down towards the middle, and you can see what happens in the middle. If you just look at that middle range, we just get our tints, so pastel shades. Anytime you see pastel shades in the summer, that's what it is. It's a colour with white added into it. Now if we add black into a colour, we get a shade of it. So these are three different ways that you can change a colour. You can add white, you can add grey, or you can add black. So then you have complementary colours. Now this is quite important in embroidery if you're choosing a colour scheme. So if we look at our colour wheel again, we've got red here. Now if we go opposite, immediately opposite to the red on the colour wheel, we have got green. So red and green are complementary colours. They'll set each other off, they'll make each other vibrant and bright, go really, really well together in a colour scheme. We'll look at a couple more. So blue, complementary of blue is orange, it's directly opposite. And we've got our violet is yellow. So those colours go together. You might look at those and think, oh, I'm not sure about those, but it's tried and tested. They do. They just make each other really vibrant and bright and go really well together. We also have contrasting colours, so it's very similar to complementary colours. Opposite, not opposite on the colour wheel, but not directly opposite necessarily. So we could look at this here. So we've got red, complementary is green, and the contrasting colours, you could go either side of that. So you could pick that sort of range of colours. And these are sort of opposite on the wheel, and those will go really nicely together. If we did the orange, there's the orange and blue. And we've got a turquoisey and a purpley blue either side. Really nice range of colours together. So some other colour schemes that you can think about. So analogous colours. I struggle with that word. Can't even say that either. So a set of colours next to each other on the colour wheel. So this would be analogous set here. Here's another one here. So anything that's next to each other on the wheel and not opposite. So the opposite of the contrasting, really. Just a group of colours next to each other on the wheel. We've got monochromatic colours. So one hue, so purple, and then the different tones or values of this hue. I can demonstrate that better. I've got some paint charts here, and you can see this here. So this is purple, so the hue of this is purple. We've got technically different tints. This has got white in it. Because this is a paint chart, you make paint lighter by adding in white in this instance, because you're putting it on your wall. So this is technically tints, but you can see all the different tints of it there. And if you used that range of colours in your embroidery, you would be doing a monochromatic colour scheme. So I want to talk about warm colours and cool colours as well. That's quite important in your embroideries. So anything that's tending to the orange, red and yellow side is warm. They are descriptive words, fire, the sunshine, the sand, all things that we associate with being warm. That's this side of the colour wheel. So anything that comes round here and is based around the oranges, reds and yellows. So equally the other side are cool colours. So ice, for example, blue. Anything blue and a cold colour is on this side of the wheel. And what happens is the warm colours will tend to pop out more. You tend to see those more, and the cool colours will recede into the background a little bit more. That's if you're using pure colours. If you used a very pale orange and a very saturated blue, then the opposite would happen. But generally in embroidery colours, we don't do that so much. So if you wanted something to pop out in your design, you could put the warm colours, make those the feature, and then cool colours behind, and that will give you some depth to your piece. So I just want to mention Pantone colours as well. So Pantone was an American printing company, and they actually standardised the colour system, and they gave every colour a number, and literally every colour a number. And this meant that companies all over the world could go, I want this purple, print my logo in this purple, print my headed paper in this purple, and you could give them a number, and you could give it to any printing company, and they could look at that number and they can go, right, it's got to be that purple. So quite a useful way if you want to exactly match a colour. I'll put a link to their website in the description below this video, because it's quite interesting to have a look at. It does get a little bit corporate because it's sort of meant for that kind of thing, but do take a look at that because it is worth it. They have some colours of the year. I don't know who decides what that is, but they have colour schemes. They predict fashion trends. It's quite influential actually. So if you wanted to do something that was of the moment, that might be a good place to look to get some ideas. I just want to mention neutral colours at this stage because the colour wheel is all very nice and beautiful and bright, but as you go into the centre of the wheel, the more you mix the colours, the more neutral they will get, the more greys and browns they will get. So I'm just going to extract that from Ginger Cat's head. Like that very much, and just show you this box of my neutral threads. So I just sort of put all these into one box really, but don't discount these threads and these colours as well, because these are quite important. But I've got kind of greys and fawn colours and cream and white and browns in here, but they can also be warm or cool. They are still on the colour wheel. So this grey is quite a warm grey actually. It tends to have more tends to have less blue in it, so it will be a slightly warmer one. Find a cooler one. There's a cooler one there. So even though they're both grey, they can be very different kinds of grey. The browns can go more orangey. They can be warm because brown has got quite a lot of yellow in it, so the more yellow the more warm the brown would be. So you might want to still consider that when you're choosing these colours as well. It's more subtle. Bit more of a greeny grey there. And you can see how they all differ, and you know if you've ever tried to pick a grey that there's actually quite a lot of choice, and grey isn't just grey. So I just wanted to mention neutral colours as well, because they can be a bit forgotten when you look at the colour wheel, but do look for those as well and see where they might fit in your scheme, whether they're cool colours or warm colours, and that will help you decide which ones to use. Right, so I think probably one of the most useful things to you as an embroiderer about colour is to talk about the thread numbering system and how manufacturers number their colours and how you can use that to help you. So I've got a couple of thread shade cards here, and I'm going to demonstrate with that. So I'll just get the Appleton's one first. Looks so pretty. So this is what the manufacturers provide to show you their whole colour range. So this is Appleton's crewel wool, well, tapestry or crewel wool. In this case, this is about the colour. This is a bit of an old set now. They do have some new colours since, more bright colours. These are very traditional crewel work colours, and I just want to show you how it works. Now this is a really good one to demonstrate with because the colours haven't changed too much over the course of the manufacturing life of Appleton's wool. So I'm going to pull one out here and just demonstrate with this. So we've got a colour here. So the hue of this colour is green. The description of the colour is green. They have called it grass green because there are other greens, just to distinguish from those greens. And what they've done is given this a number. So this is 250, and this probably relates to the dye lot for this particular colour green. Appleton's will know what dye lot this is and what goes into making this colour, and then they've given each colour in the range a different number, and you can see how they start at light and they get dark. So the number for this thread, if you wanted to buy it, would be 256. This one will be 255, this will be 254. So this is the whole tonal range, the value range of these colours, and you know that these have all been dyed with the same dye lot. And that's important because you know that these colours will go together. It's quite a yellow green, so it's a warm green because it's got more yellow in it and less blue in it. And this this will help you to choose your colour. So if you wanted to use green in your piece, you could pick all your greens from the same range, and you know that those greens will go together. And if you picked one from near this end, a 5 or a 6, one from the middle, 2 or 3, and then a 1A or a 1, you would have 3 greens that are the same dye lot but are different tones. So there's a light, medium and a dark. If you pick the two sort of in the middle, those two are quite similar, and you just pick those two, which is quite a safe thing to do as adults. We tend to hover around the safety of the middle of the colours. They're very similar, and when you put them in your piece you may not be able to tell them apart, and they won't really make your piece pop. If you put in a really dark colour or a really light one with it, suddenly these are going to show up against each other. You're going to get some real dimension to your piece, and it will look three-dimensional. So that's one way that you can use those numbers to help you, is to pick just from one range and pick from either end and maybe a few in the middle. You don't have to use much of these dark or light colours for it to make a difference, but just a little bit will really make your piece stand out. Now I just want to demonstrate with another green. So what's this one? This one is sea green. So again, the hue is green. This particular one is sea green to distinguish it from grass green. And you can see this one isn't quite as warm as this. It's a little bit more blue in it. It's a little bit cooler. So this one's going to stand out more against this one. But again, it's numbered in the same way. We've got light to dark. This is range 400. This will be their dye lot number 400. So it'll be 407, 404, 401. And how you can use this together is this, in theory, this colour here, this number, should relate to this number here. Now this has got an extra one. This is a 7, so we'll look at the 6s. So that 6 is the same tonal value as this 6 in this range. And if I put those colours on a copier and I copied them in black and white, they should come out the same colour grey. So if you put these two colours together, even though they're different greens in your embroidery, one won't stand out from the other because it's got the same tonal value, the same dark or lightness, if you like. So if you wanted this green to stand out from this green, you could use a different tone. So you could use number 3 here with number 6 or 7 here, and you've got different greens and different tones, and then they will really stand out. And I suggest when maybe you're choosing your colours, this is just a guideline, this is not a rule, you may want to consider choosing them all from one range so that they go together. So if you picked a green from here and a green from here and another green from over there, you've got 3 different greens and 3 different tones, and it's all beginning to look a bit messy. So if you want a bit of cohesion to it, you want something to gel and to look nice together, consider it all from the same range. So if you want to add in a second colour, so let's add in a purple, for example. So again, the hue is purple. Number is 100, 1 to 6, light to dark. So you always know with Appletons that the higher number at the end, the darker the thread is. And you can do the same. So you can, number 6 in the green and number 6 in the purple will be the same dark or lightness. So they're going to blend quite nicely together. If you want one to stand out against the other, choose a different tone. So come towards this end. You don't immediately have to jump to 1. That's quite a big contrast. But you could choose a number 3 and a number 5. And you know that you'll start to be able to see those colours differently. So you can add in a third colour as well. Now, if we're thinking of our colour wheel, let's just bring that back in a sec. So we've got purple and green. So we could go opposite the purple and green, which would be an orangey colour. Bear with me, it does work. You might be thinking, what's she doing? So let's find an orangey colour. Let's find a nice orangey colour. That's quite a neutral one. That's quite nice. These are nice soft colours because they were based on traditional dye lots that would have been used. So then we've got an orange. I think you'll agree those are quite nice colours together. Now this is quite a large range. This goes 1 to 9. There's more choices in here. Again, if you pick a couple near the middle, they might look a little bit similar. You don't need to have every colour unless you were doing a monochromatic colour scheme, in which case you could just do all of those colours and those alone. And you can mix and match those with these ones using your colours numbers to help you choose. So again, a couple from the middle, one from either end, just to get that contrast in there. And just think about what number you're choosing from the other ones, what tonal value you're choosing from the other ones, and whether you want these colours to blend nicely together. You'll get a nice calm colour scheme if you do that. Or if you want something a bit brighter and a bit more dramatic, then choose colours from the ends of the tonal scale, and that will help you to do that. So that works with other threads as well. So I've got another couple of thread shade cards here. I've got DMC and an anchor one. Pick the anchor one for no particular reason. So this is their stranded cotton or their stranded floss range. Now the numbering system doesn't work quite so well with this. They've had a lot of changes. Dyes come in, new dyes come in, old dyes go out. So their numbers don't work quite so well. But you can see the family groups here. I'm going to get a ginger tail in this any minute. Can I just put that there? Thank you. So you can see the family groups that you get from dark to light. So if I just open that one out there. So we've got 70, 72, 69, 68 and 66. So they still do that sort of numbering system where they start dark and come down to light. And again, this is the middle tone, this is the dark tone, this is the light tone. And if you want to match that with another colour you can do the same. So get your pinks just from that range, rather than a pink from there and a pink from there and a pink from down here. You've got 3 different random pinks and 3 different tones. It's going to all look a bit strange, so try and get some consistency in it. Pick a range of colours, choose your colours from that, pick another range, and then think about your tones. Do you want the colours to go together? So pick similar tones. Do you want them to stand out from each other? Pick tones at the either ends, so the dark and the lights. So you can see this good purple range here. You could pick the dark one, maybe the second from the bottom, and a couple in the middle, and you've got a nice selection of purples. Do the same with a pink range, or a completely different range. You've got reds as well, the pinks over here, and use those numbers to help you to create the palette that you want. So let's talk about how you can choose a colour scheme. So many times I've taught and I said, oh, let's go and choose some colours, and people just completely freeze. They just don't know where to start. You can't magic these things up out of thin air. You need to sort of have some inspiration and some ideas about where you want to go with your colour scheme. Often people will they'll come into a class and I'll say, let's pick some colours. Oh, I don't know what colour to choose, and they're wearing all purple. So I suggest, well, maybe you like purple. So they can pick some purple. You might want to be a bit more realistic, and you might be working from a picture that you've taken and you want to take the colours directly from that, but just some ideas about other places you can get your colour schemes from. So the colour wheel is a great idea. You can start with the colour wheel. You can get these online, by the way. Just Google colour wheel and they'll come up. Quite a handy little reference to have, because they give a lot of information, and I'll just show you their colour schemes on the back. So on the front they've got red, yellow, blue. There's your primaries, orange, violet and green are your secondaries. It tells you which ones are warm colours and which ones are cool colours. It shows you what happens if you add white to red violet, shows you what colour you get. It's got all of those explanations. Going to fall off the table in a minute. It's got all of those explanations of the colours that we've talked about, the terminology. But then if you turn it over on the back, this is quite a good little device. Let's get it the right way up. So it gives you some colour combination schemes that work well together. So if you're really, really stuck, you could just start with this. I'll just point with my pen. So complementary colours. So let's just turn the wheel. So we've got something that makes sense. Let's go red, green. So complementary colours, we've talked about this. Red and green are complementary. So that would be 2 colours if you just wanted a 2 colour scheme. If you want a 3 colour scheme, you can have this split complementary. So red, and then either side of the complementary colour. So we've got a blue, green and a yellow, green. So red, blue, green, yellow, green would be a 3 colour combination. So you can do a triad. So it's still 3 colours, but we're going wider apart now. So we're still going red, opposite, and then along 2. So we've got red, we've got yellow, and we've got blue. So your 3 primary colours. And then we've got a tetrad. So that's 4 colours. So we've got a violet, a blue, a yellow, and an orange. And then depending on where you turn this, you could get a different colour scheme. So here for our triad, we've got red, orange, blue, violet and yellow, green. So a really simple way of choosing a colour scheme. If you're really struggling, you absolutely don't know where to start and you want some basic colours, this works really well. And I would say keep it simple initially. Don't try and go for Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat. It worked for him, but start simple. Just start with a minimal number of colours while you learn the language of colour. So some other places you could get some colour ideas from a painting you admire. Often been round a gallery and there's some really stunning colour combinations. You're not looking to take every colour from the painting, but just look at the painting and which ones stand out the most. Obviously they've already made decisions about colour, so they know what they're doing, but you might just find something, yeah, really touches you. You don't even have to know why that is, and you could take your colour scheme from that. Nature, obviously a fabulous place. Nature never does it wrong, and lots of colours in nature. Everything can go together and it always looks amazing. So you can put lots of colours together and still have a really, really harmonious colour scheme. If you're going to put lots of colours, I would suggest repeating them around your design, and that will just help to bring them all together a little bit. Pantone trends, we've mentioned this already. You could have a look on their website and see what's trending at the moment if you want to be up with the latest fashions. Do remember, if you do that in a couple of years' time it's not going to be in fashion. So that might matter, that might not matter. Magazine pages you could flick through, you might see an advert in there or an article and find some colour schemes in there that you like. You could borrow the colour schemes from those. Paint swatch cards. Have a little look at these earlier. There's a few more over here. You could go in your local DIY store and pick some swatch cards, and this is quite good just to cut the colours out and move them around and see what works well together. Before you commit to going and buying your embroidery threads, I would make sure that you've got the colours you need first, so they're really good resource if you want to try out some different colours. What else have I got? Some postcards. So I've got some here in front of me, and I've got some pictures that I have taken. I think it's quite important to use work pictures, your own pictures, not so much for colour, because you're just using the colour schemes, but just picked a few out here. So this is a sunset, so you can see the interesting colours here. This is not a rainbow coloured picture. We've got some really bright yellows, almost down to white down in this corner, and black in the trees. So we've got that real contrast between the really light and the really dark. We've got some really warm colours here, some quite moody browns here. If you actually separated that off and pretend it wasn't a sunset and just separate that colour out, you'll find some really interesting brown and greys in here. So lots of neutral colours with some really strong and really light and dark. So actually a really good colour scheme in that one there. Obviously plants that way up. Ooh, no, not that way up. Don't know which way up it is, it doesn't matter. And these beautiful lilies, so we've got white, we've got light pink, dark pink, we've got a little bit of yellow here, we've got a bit of sort of orangey red, we've got some greens in lots of colours, so really nice harmonious colour scheme, and more colours in there than you might initially think. And if you're looking at it and going, it's got so many colours, I don't know which one, just look at it for a few seconds, note which colours spring out at you immediately and pick those colours. It's not about looking at it and picking up every single colour that you can see. I must have every colour in there. Go for the ones that really stand out and the ones that make an impression on you. So this is a bit more neutral, so we've got some sort of tints going on here, some pale greens and some pale pinks, again very dark and very light, so that would make a great colour combination. This one I picked because it was quite a lot of neutral colours, lots of greys and browns, and then there's this bright patch of pink down here. That can be really nice to add that highlight of colour, just something a bit brighter than everything else. It captures your attention and makes you want to look at the piece that you're stitching. Got some postcards that I've pulled out here, so this bit inspired me particularly. I really like this sort of paler colours, more tints really, but it's got the browns in it and the neutrals in it again. So don't forget those neutral colours, they can be really beautiful. Just a bit of calm maybe. If everything's a bright colour it can be too much to look at and you've moved on to the next thing. But if you have some of those neutrals, it will just help to calm it down a little bit and make the other areas stand out more. This is a Monet painting, obviously, so he's got some quite bright colours in this. Again, a bit more tints, so these greens are quite blue, so quite cool colours in this one. And then he's got these warm flowers, this warm colour for the lily flowers, and that makes those flowers stand out against the cool background. So you can use that warm and cool colour to really make something stand out. It's a picture of a garden. This is Great Dixter in East Sussex. A lot going on there. Again, you don't need every colour, just pick a few out that really resonate with you. So we've got our purples and our yellows and some pinks and then some greens as well. So you can have some bright colours together, just not too many I would suggest. And this is one from Greece. Thought this was interesting because of the contrast in the colour. So we've got the very cool blue colour and then the white, very striking next to each other, and then this really bright pink flower on the top which really stands out, and you can see the warm colour against the cool colour here and how much it throws that forward. So again, another example of how you can use warm and cool colours together. Okay, so let's talk about some things to think about when you're choosing your colours. So I've got here, understand the basics, don't get caught up in the technical language. This is to help you understand colour. This is not a set of rules, you must follow this, and you can only follow this, and this is how you choose your colours. They're to help you make some choices, and when you're beginning, use these use the terminology, use the colour wheels to help you, and the more that you do it, the more you'll understand and the less you'll need those things. So just understand the basics to help you choose your colours. Start with simple schemes while you'll build up your colour confidence, so just 3 to 5 colours maybe initially. If you want to keep the number of colours, so the hues to a minimum, but want to use more threads, you could just add extra tones. So you could have a red, a green and a blue, and have a few tones of each of those colours, so you could have 6 threads but only 3 colours, and that will help to harmonise it and not get too complicated with too many different colours. Experiment with your colours. Now, I have talked in a previous video all about sampling. You can check that out up here. That's really, really important, especially for colour. Try some colour schemes out. Don't just go and pick your colours and start stitching. Get a little bit of fabric, get a frame, try some different things together, see what you like the look of, see what works well together. I want to mention black. Black is good in some circumstances. Black work, for example. I tend to avoid it in most other things. It's a really difficult colour. It doesn't reflect any colour back. It just sucks up all the colour and can be really, really powerful. So if you can avoid black in your colour scheme and go for something like a dark tone of a blue, like a navy blue or a brown or a deep red colour, that will still give you the same effect of that light and dark, but it's using colour, not using black, so it will still be vibrant and it will still make your pieces zing, but without sucking all of the life out of it. Don't forget about your warm and your cool. We talked about that quite a bit. So if you want something to stand out, use the warm colours at the front and the cool at the back. So that's a good one to remember. And something else that I haven't mentioned yet actually is all colours have an effect on other colours. So if you have a set of greys and you put that set of greys with some bright yellows, it will do something different to if you put them with a set of dark blues, for example. So the colours that you use next to each other will have a different effect depending what order you use them in. So it's worth getting some swatches or some threads or some paint charts and just using those colours next to each other and seeing what effect they have, because they will change how a piece can look. We've talked about tone a lot, so using colours of the same tonal value will make your piece look quite sort of gentle and calm and harmonious. If you want something to be a bit more vibrant and a bit more lively, use the different tones at the end of the scale. We've covered that one quite a bit. Symbolism is an interesting one. You might have to choose your colours depending on what you're making. So I'm thinking specifically of church vestments. A lot of colour symbolism in church vestments, different colours for different times of the year. You will need to follow those rules if you want, if you were making something like that, for example, and think about the background colour as well. That is just as important. So many times I've seen people come to me with lovely designs and then I think that's great, that works really nicely, and then they whip out the fabric and I'm just like, oh, everything changes. we need to start again, because everything will look different on a different colour background. And you're embroidering green leaves and you whip out a green fabric, then those leaves are suddenly going to look very different. So do think about your background fabric right from the beginning. If you want to go for safety, go for a nice neutral colour. That's always pretty safe. But bright colours can look really great as well, but choose those along with the colours of your threads so that you can get that balance right. I want to mention your balance of colours as well. So you've chosen your colours, but how much colour can you use with another colour? And this pie chart is really great. I love this. It's quite scientific, which goes a bit against what I was saying about don't follow the rules. And it comes from this book here, Colour for the Artist by Hans Schwartz. And I just found this really, really useful. I bring this into my classes a lot because it's really simple to understand, and it's about how much colour you can use with another colour. It's actually based on light, and these sections are how much light a colour reflects back from each other. So the size of the pie shape is directly related to how many light waves that colour will reflect back. And if you look at the opposite colours, so we look at the yellow and the violet, and the yellow needs much smaller space to reflect the same amount of light that the violet does. Now you can use that quite simply in your threads by basically using this much violet versus this much yellow. So if you were stitching something and you've got quite a bit of violet, you only need a little slither of yellow, maybe a third of that, for those colours to harmonise and work well together. Use more yellow, less violet, and that yellow is really going to dominate and really stand out. might be what you want, but if you understand that, then you can choose. So interestingly, the green and the red, so they're opposites on the colour wheel, they're about the same size. So in about the same green and red will blend really nicely together, and the blue and orange is somewhere in between, so you need less of the orange and more of the blue to have that nice balance. And I just thought that was really useful. You don't have to measure the amount of thread you use, but just have an understanding that if you've got some yellow in there and some orange in there, they're quite dominant colours, you might just want to use a little bit less of those. So a couple of other things that I want to mention. When you're choosing your colours, check what is available first. So you might think, oh, I'm going to do these amazing red flowers. Red is quite a difficult colour to choose from. It's the only colour that when you add white actually changes its hue. So if you add white to red, you start to get pink. It's actually a different hue. It's a different colour, white, pink and red. You add white to blue, you get light blue. You add white to green, you get light green, but red actually changes to pink. So check what thread colours are available if you're thinking I want to do a red flower. Often quite a difficult colour, and they can also go quite peachy quite quickly as well. So if they're a bit warmer, so a bit nearer to yellow on the colour wheel, you'll get this more peachy colour, and it soon won't be red. Here's into pink pretty quickly here. So pure reds, a dark, a medium and a light red, are quite hard to find in most different thread makes. I would say that's across the board. So do check out your colours first. If you have a shop, you can go and actually look at the shop. Do look at the colours in the daylight. They can have different colour bulbs in shops, and that can change what you're looking at, and you get it home, it looks like something completely different. So try and look in the daylight if you can. If you can't get to a shop and you're buying your threads online, these shade cards, you might want to invest in these. They are a bit of an investment, but I use mine all the time to pick my colours. I just find it really useful. Once you've picked them, then you can go and buy the colours that you need. So I'm going to run down some questions that members sent in to me. Thank you very much for that. So let's just start with Rita. What's the best way to blend colours for smooth shading, thinking of flowers? So if you want to get something dark at one point and it goes down to light in the middle and you want a nice blend, that's all about your tones. So get that one colour, choose the one colour range and get the darkest and get the lightest and the few in between, so you can blend nicely from one colour to another. Try not to jump through different hues, through different colour ranges, and that will definitely help you, Rita. Thank you for that. So Jennifer says, how do you mix and match the colours of beads and sequins with stitches? Okay, I have actually got a little sample here that I found. So don't overthink it. It doesn't matter what material it is that you're using, the colours system still applies, choosing your colours still apply. So I've got some stitching around this nice piece of agate in here that I've shished on, and you can see how I've just pulled in the colours around it. So I've done a sort of dark reddy purple stitch around here, and I've got that same colour in some of the sequins here. I've done some green stitching here, and I've got some green sequins and some more different kinds of green sequins in here, and some darker purple ones to match the stone that's in the middle. So I'm still applying the same rules. Don't get confused by the fact that one thing's a thread and one thing's a sequin. You still want to harmonise your colours, bring those colours in throughout your design, and that will help it all gel together. So the Key Nano 1, I know what your name is, sorry. Do you have a ratio for combining neutrals with pure hue so that your piece... Ginger Cat's protesting. So that your piece doesn't look like a circus poster? Are there rules when working with pastels? We did mention earlier, neutrals are still colours. They can still be warm, they can still be cool, and they arrive from mixing pure colours together, so they will fit into your colour scheme. So I think don't treat them as a different colour, still think about how they can fit together. Use a minimal palette, and it's that picture that we looked at earlier with the castle on it, and that just really bright flowers in there. Maybe don't put too much of the bright colour in, because you won't need much against the neutral. So don't think of them as something different, just treat them as another colour on the colour wheel. So Lake says, how to develop a colour palette, ways to find inspiration, how to cull out the best representative colours from the things you find inspiring, like a painting, and methods to test out if the palette works. So we've covered probably most of that. I ways to find inspiration. We talked about how to cull out the best colours, so just look at it for a short amount of time, notice which ones stand out and just pick those ones. You can always add to them later, but don't go mad, just keep that palette minimal while you're learning it as well. And best way to test a palette works is to do the sampling piece. You can't imagine it in your head. You can do colour pencils, you can do little tests with that, but it's quite hard to get your colour pencil to match your actual thread, so I think there's nothing like doing it with the actual threads. Get a bit of fabric, try them out and see what works for you. Tony Moore says, seems to be so many rules that there seems to be no rules at all. Yeah. Pretty much, and this is just the basics. You can get really deep into this subject, so just go back to the basics, Tony. Just start at the beginning, start there with your primaries and your secondaries, your warms and your cools and your tones, and if you stick to those you can't go too wrong really. So Slow Noma, value is my greatest challenge, always gravitate to medium values. We tend to do that as adults. That's quite a safe place to be. We're a bit risk averse the older we get, so just take a little bit of colours from either end. You don't need to use them all, it might only be a little bit, but if you just consciously choose your ones in the middle you would normally choose, and then just go, I'm going to have one of those and I'm going to have one of those, and just use a little bit of that and you'll start to see the effect that that can have. So Rafi says, hi Rafi, I'm in fact planning to stitch a colour wheel. I got stuck as how to choose colours for it. I would need 12 colours and I'm a bit confused on how to pick those. So just identify your hues, Rafi, so your red, yellow and blue, and then try to pick the mid-tone of each. So pick your range of reds, your range of blues, and go for that middle one that we just talked about, that safe one. And the middle hues should all be roughly the same dark or lightness as each other, and they should go together. So identify your colours and then just pick that middle tone. Fistral Niece says, would like to know more about value and how to substitute a palette using value in grayscale, especially when it comes to silk shading. Sometimes you see a pattern in grayscale, but I don't know how that would help me to choose. So this is a technique in silk shading that you can do. You've got a pink flower and you want to stitch the same flower but in blue. So what you can do is use the grayscale. So you could copy that flower in black and white on a copier, and that will give you the tonal values, how dark and light it is. So then you can identify where the dark parts are, where the light parts are, where the medium tones are, and then you can translate that to pink. So you could get, if it was blue originally, for example, you want to do it in pink, make it black and white, go right, there's the dark pinks, there's the light pinks, there's the medium pinks. Choose a palette of pinks you like, pick the dark, medium, light and substitute those for the blue ones. So you can use that grayscale just to tell you where the darks and the lights are without the confusion of the colour. Don't forget they're different things. So you just want to focus in on what's dark and what's light, and you can use that grayscale picture to help you. So Wilma says, I also make fair art jumpers and have found that oh, I love Wilma, and found that if you throw enough different colours at a thing, it'll probably be fine. Flame Gremlin also says, how many colours are too many? I use a colour wheel and I like to use Pantone Colour of the Year chart. So Flame Gremlin's already doing that, but how many colours are too many? No right or wrong about how many colours are too many. Some people, some artists, you crazy colour schemes, and in a way the more you put in the easier it can be, I think, because you don't have to think about what goes with what. You can just chuck it all in there. But I would say try and harmonise it a little bit. So don't use all your pinks up in one corner and all your blues in another. Excuse me. Try and use a bit throughout, a little bit pink here, a little bit pink there, and it will just tie your piece together a little bit, and that should be okay. So Ian says, I'd love to know I can get some colour charts for the various makes of threads and conversion charts for different makes of coloured thread. Now this was answered, I think, in the comment on the community page, but it is a good question. So these charts here, get them off the internet. Just Google it, because you can get them different places wherever you are in the world. So just Google, it's probably the best way. They're not particularly cheap, but they're quite a good investment if you're going to do a lot of stitching. And the other question there was about conversion. So you've got some colours in DMC and you want to use those, use Anchor instead, for example. How do you know what the direct colour is. So lots of people have done those online. So just Google conversion chart, DMC to anchor conversion chart. Somebody on the internet will have done one. They take a long time to do, so thank them profusely for doing it. And you can use that as a guide. There won't be an exact match, but they're pretty good. So again, just Google it and you'll find that online somewhere. So our last question is from Rebecca, so struggles with tone. So for instance, to get my light, medium and dark greens okay, but then when I need to choose shades for the flowers, they might be the same tones as the greens and end up looking a bit dull. So we've probably covered that, I think, Rebecca. So yes, you can get your colours, you think they look beautiful together, but you've got all the same tone and it ends up blending in. And as you said, it can look a bit dull. So again, just be braver, maybe just lighten something or darken something else. Just emphasize those darks and those lights. It hasn't got to be exactly as it is in the picture you're working from. Just emphasize that and that will make it stand out. And if you want your flower to stand out from your green background, maybe make those colors more for contrast, and keep the greens more similar in tone, and the greens will sink back and your flower will come forward. So I hope you found that useful and there's something in there that you can take away. It is quite a complicated subject, I do understand that. So do watch the video again and pause it if you need to. Just stop and take something in that I've said. I'll put a free PDF up of the terminology. I'll do that in the description below the video. So do check that out as well to remind yourself what that is. Remember, just keep it simple. Start with the basics and your colour language will still soon develop and you'll become much more confident. Thanks again to all my channel members for giving me your questions and helping me to design this video. There's another video coming just for you. We're going to look at some of my pieces in my collection in relation to colours and why I've chosen what I've chosen. If you want to see that and you're not a channel member yet, then do join us. Don't forget you can check out that video on how to join below, or you can click the join button here. That will take you straight to it. I would love to have you on board and I will see you all in the next video.